Ooh, that looks tasty. Welcome, folks. Today the Hungry Gamer is back with another part of our Dawnshade How to Play video series. And in this video, we are going to be talking about the various different types of mini-games that you see as you play through Dawnshade. And I will add that if you are looking for how gambling works, that is in the quest tile explanation video. You'll be able to find down in the description links to the various different how to play videos. In addition to that, there will be timestamps that will tell you where in this video you can find descriptions of each individual minigame. The first minigame that we're going to talk about are the various stat checks. As you're going through events and sometimes battles, the logbook will instruct you to make a stat check. These checks will either deal with your defense stat, your devotion stat, or your attack stat. In all cases, if you are doing an attack or a devotion check, the target number will be whatever your total kinship stat is times 2. So what that means is, if you have 2 members of your kinship, and one of them has 1 attack stat, and the other has an attack stat of 2, then you will be trying to get 6 successes. And the way that you'll do that is each player will get to roll their attack dice onto the battle mat. And if you look around the sides, you'll see that there are numbers from -1 to +2. And what will happen is you'll be rolling from the bottom of the mat, and you roll your die onto the mat. Then you see how many successes you have. In this case, I have 1, but since the die stopped in the -1 zone, as you can see there, I actually have a 0. If the die had landed right here, I would get 1 because it crosses over into the better zone. Then I would roll the other dice, and if you roll off the mat, you simply take the die and roll again. So here you'll see I have 1, this is a 0, and this one here is a 2 plus 2, so 4. I have a total of 5. However, if you remember, my attack stat for the kinship was 3, which means I did not succeed because my target was a 6. This works exactly the same if you are using devotion dice. Again, whatever the total kinship statistic is, times 2 is the number of successes you're looking for. So if my total number of devotion dice that I have for my entire kinship was 3, then I would be trying to get 6 successes when I rolled. And you'll see here, that is 0, because 1 minus 1, 1 plus 1 here, and a 0 there. I have failed yet again. The only one that is different is when you are doing defense dice. Because there are less successes on defense dice, you are trying to get the exact same number as your stat. So if my kinship had a total defense stat of 3, I would be trying to get 3 successes when I rolled. And so here, 1 minus 1 would be 0, 1 plus 1 is 2, 1 plus 2 is 3 for a total of 5. I finally succeeded. And that is how the stat checks work. After you've done your check, you go back to the logbook and see what the bonus or penalty you have received for succeeding or failing. Next we're going to talk about the various Cogbot mini games that you can come across as you play through your game of Dawnshade. The first one we're going to talk about is Cogfighting. And what's going to happen is each player will take one of their Cogbots, and at the same time you will both be spinning them on the mat, like so. Now I will say that if you're playing, you should be holding it on the edge and just kind of giving it a flick. However, since I only have 2 hands, I'm doing it like this. And whichever one is the last one moving, in this case the red, that would be the winner of the round. So they would take their chip and put it to the side. The losing player would put theirs also to the side, and they have received no points. Then you would go again, and you play until one player has won 3 rounds. In this case, purple would have won, and so they would put that aside, and you get the idea. At the end of 3 rounds, each player puts whatever they have won out on the mat. And so we will just say that red was the first to win 3 times. Then you would look at the number of successes on the chips and you would add those up. In this case, we have 3 for red and 4 for purple. So even though red won 3 matches to purple's 2, purple has actually won Cogfighting in this instance. If you are playing with only one player, then Cogfighting is a little bit different. In that case, you will take Cogbot drudges and place a single health chip underneath them. And you will put 1 on each of the spaces 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7. Then you will take each of your chips and you will spin them from the edge, and wherever the chip lands, if it lands touching one of the Cogbots or within a single chip width, like so, you are able to then distribute the number of hits on the Cogbot to damage the Cogbot drudges. In this case, I could do a single damage there, and that would remove that Cogbot drudge. After you have finished spinning all 3 of your Cogbots, if you have managed to eliminate at least 3 of the drudges out there, you have succeeded. And again, just as a reminder, if I manage to make a chip land like so, I could distribute that 2 and eliminate both of those 2. The next minigame is called Cogbashing, and to do that, you'll orient the battle mat like so. Each player will then take turns sliding their Cogbots towards the initiative circle over here, making sure they start in between these 2 white lines on the side of the initiative discard circle. They are then trying to get their chip closest to the initiative circle without going off the mat. Players take turns, flicking back and forth, and you are welcome to try to knock your opponents out of the way if you can. The next thing that you do is you then add up which 3 chips are closest to the initiative circle. In this case, we have this one, and this one, and then you add up the number of hits on each. This would give purple 4 and red only 2. Whoever has the most hits closest to the initiative circle has won Cogbashing. If you are playing a solo game, you will place a single Cogbot drudge on each of these locations, and then you will again flick your chips towards the initiative circle. Again, your goal is to be close to the initiative circle. However, in this case, you must have your chips stop either touching the circle or within a single chip width from the edge of the circle for it to count. If you finish with at least 2 hits within range of the initiative circle, then you have succeeded. And again, you must start on this edge of the map between these 2 lines, so you will have to move those chips out of the way. And there you will see that I have failed. The next minigame is called Cogrushing. This is a game where one member of the kinship will represent the defender with a tower they are defending, and the other members of the kinship will be sending out the minions to attack the tower, and that will make sense in just a moment. In this particular challenge, the non-defending members of the kinship will be able to bet between 0, 1, and 2 tawny against the defending member. If the active player, who is the defending player, wins the match, then all bets are lost, and if the active player, again the defending player, loses, then all bets are doubled. The first thing you will do is the active player, again who is acting as the defender with their tower, will stack 15 health chips on this end of the board. They will take their 15 and stack them right here, like so. Then they will select one of their Cogbot chips, and they'll place it on the edge of the tower with half of the chip hanging off. While that is being set up, the other players will be setting up the advancing force of Cogbot drudges. First, they will take 1 and give it 3 health, and they will place that on the bottom of their battle stack. Then they will take 2 more and place 2 health chips underneath and place that on top of the one that has 3. Finally, they will take the last 3 Cogbots and place a single health chip under each of them and place those on top of the battle stack. From there, players will take turns either attacking the approaching Cogbots or deploying or moving the advancing Cogbot drudges. You must always take from the top of the stack. So the non-active players could place a Cogbot out like that. Then it would be the active player's turn, and they will get to flip their Cogbot off the top of their stack and try to make it stop moving while touching this or within a single chip's width. To do so, they will be, with their finger, flicking the overhanging ledge of the chip, making it fly through the air onto the mat, like so. In this case, I have missed. However, if I had landed over here within a chip's width or touching, I would get to do however many hits are on top to that Cogbot. In this case, none. However, if I was here, I could have done 1 damage and defeated that Cogbot completely. Play continues like this, with the non-active players placing drudges and sending them out, alternating with the active player taking their Cogbots and flipping them out onto the mat, like so. Once all 3 of the active players' Cogbots have been flipped out, in this case you'll notice that I would have done 2 damage and defeated that one, then they are able to collect their 3 Cogbots and begin their attack again. If at any point one of the Cogbots reaches the tower, the active player has lost and the non-active players have won. If the active player is able to defeat the entire battle stack worth of Cogbots, then they have won. If you are playing a solo game, it plays out exactly the same. However, the active player will simply be the one that both moves and deploys the Cogbots. Next we have the loot chute. This can be the result of combat where players are competing for treasure that has dropped in the aftermath of the battle. What happens is you place a single tier 1 loot onto the battle mat like so. Then each player will flip their character chips like coins onto the battle mat, trying to get their chip to stop closest to the center of the circle on the loot card. Whichever character chip winds up closest, that character claims the loot. In this case, you'll see purple would claim the loot. If you're playing in a solo game, you will only claim the loot if you have managed to get your chip to actually touch the circle there or within a single chip's width. Next we have the treasure trap challenges. This represents your hero trying to unlock some kind of challenge, and if they succeed, they'll gain some sort of treasure. If they fail, they will trigger a trap. This minigame will vary in its setup depending on the tier of the challenge. It is important to note this has nothing to do with what chapter you are on in the story. Rather, the logbook will tell you what tier to set up. If you are setting up a tier 1, you will place 3 stacks of 3 chips, like so, on the battle mat. Then, for your challenge, you will attempt to roll your 3 Cogbots from this side of the battle mat, in between these lines, off the other end, in between these lines, without knocking any of the chips off of these stacks. You simply take it at the edge, and you roll it. You'll see there, I failed because it went that way. I would have failed there because I knocked a chip off and I would have triggered the trap. And in this case, I would have succeeded because even though I hit those, they did not actually fall down. If you are setting up the tier 2 setup, looks like this. The tier 3 setup looks like this. And then the tier 4 setup looks like this. I will say that it is possible to get a chip through there. It is just very, very challenging. As you can see, I managed to succeed there without knocking any chips off. The final minigame is the Boomshot Gallery, and to play that you will be flipping over your battle mat to this side here. From here, each player will pay 1 tawny per shot they would like to take in the Boomshot Gallery. In other words, if red wanted to take 3 shots, they would have to pay 3 tawny. If red only wanted to take 1 shot, they would only pay 1 tawny. From there, once you have determined how many shots each player is going to take, in this case I will say that red will be taking 2 shots and purple will be taking 3 shots. Just like with the loot chute, you flip your Cogbot chips like a coin onto the mat. Once that is done, you reward each player with the reward for any of the targets that their Cogbot chip has landed on or within a single chip's width. In the case of something like this here, when there are 2 players on the same target, whoever is closer to the center would get that reward. If, in the case of over here, more than one is touched by the chip, you look at whichever one the chip is more on. So in this case, purple would receive a Vaki of their choice, they would receive the airborne condition, and they would receive 2 tawny. Red would receive a shield and 2 tawny as well. There is no difference to this minigame if you were playing the game solo. So there you have it, folks. Those are all the different mini games that you can play in Dawnshade. In the next video, we will be talking about how combat works. As always, thank you so much for watching. Have a wonderful, wonderful day.